What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Famous? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do I always send you? DJLittleRock.com. One more time, DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote, and maybe you can have me at your next event. You know I like to party with the people. The people need to be entertained. Are you not entertained? Let me entertain you. Speaking of entertainment, today on the program, I have Dan White. Dan Wesley White. Yes, that Dan Wesley White. You know him. You love him. He's out of Texas. Yeah, Dan Wesley White. Look him up. I'll wait. All right. You know he's out of Texas. You know he's a singer-songwriter. You know he's in a band. We're going to get to know Dan Wesley White a little bit more in the next few minutes. So stick around. This week's shows, let's see. I have one public show for your listening pleasure and your entertainment pleasure. You provide the entertainment over at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas. My usual Friday night gig, the Video Dance Party Karaoke Jam. Yes, I said karaoke. You're the stars of the show. You provide the entertainment. All I'm doing is pressing buttons. Let me press a button for you. You could sing pretty much whatever you want. I mean, as long as it's out there. If it's out there, there's a karaoke version of it, I will get it for you. If I don't already have it, I probably already have it. They got a full bar. The kitchen's open. Pool tables. They got a pool tournament on Friday nights. So if you want to try your hand at playing pool and possibly make some money while you're doing it, come on out to the Rab, Conway, Arkansas. Video Dance Party Karaoke Jam. 8 p.m. until 12:30 in the a.m. on Friday night. And then on Saturday, I think I have a private party on Saturday. Last week I was at the Choctaw VFW in Choctaw, Arkansas. I'll be back there on the 13th of July. So if you want to come out on a Saturday night, I'll be at the Choctaw VFW. But unless you're invited to the private party, you cannot come. But I am available for weddings and parties of all kinds. Well, many kinds. Wherever I fit. Wherever I don't fit, hey, hire Dan Wesley White. All right, let's get into it with Dan Wesley White. I got him on Skype, so if you're listening to the audio version of this, I encourage you to check out the YouTube on the YouTube version on my YouTube page, youtube.com/user/KeysDan. Skyping Dan Wesley White now. Look at you, smarter than the machine. You did it. You did it. That's Army training right there.
Some kind of training.
All right. Well, hey, I got the grumpy old vet on my screen. What is happening? Dan White in the house. What is going on, man? You know, you're an enigma wrapped around a labyrinth, wrapped around another enigma, and maybe inside of a sandwich, a ham sandwich. Because there's not much that I could find on you. I didn't get any links from you. So I know you were in the Army. I know you're in Texas. I know that you have a dog, at least one dog, maybe a golden retriever. But other than that, there's not a lot much more that I know about you, Dan White. Give the people and me an idea of who you are.
Well, I'm an ex-vet. I was in the Army band for about 9 years between National Guard and active duty. And then when I got out of the military, I went in and got my teaching degree. So I also teach band in Texas.
I like that. I like that. When you learn something in this life, it's your job to teach the next generation. I don't care what you do. Once you have some knowledge, share that with the next generation. Don't keep it to yourself. That way the next generation can build upon what you've learned. We're all standing on the shoulders of giants. Now, from what I'm seeing on your Facebook, which is pretty much the only place that I know you from, are you a tuba player?
Yes.
Was that your first thing? Was that your main instrument growing up and now?
Right. It was my main instrument. And then when I got into high school, they needed a bass guitar player for jazz bands. So since I already read bass clef music, it was an easy switch over.
Okay, well, tell me about the tuba, because that's the deep one. That's the bass. That's the how low can you go? If you had that kind of a baritone voice, that's the bass. That's the tuba. That's what you want to be paired up with, I guess, when you're doing some singing. I don't know a lot about singing. I know about playing music on the radio and talking to people and learning your story. But tell me about Texas, a little Dan White in Texas growing up. What kind of mischief are you getting into? What are you learning as a young lad in Texas?
Well, I was exposed because my dad's a Baptist preacher, so I'm probably the black sheep of the family, as you like to think of the rumors, and yes, they are true. So I was the one always getting in a lot of trouble growing up. But I've always been in love with music since I first started singing around 4 or 5 years old. And then, of course, I picked up instruments as I got older, played in the marching band. And like I said, then I auditioned right before I graduated high school for the Army band. And nowadays, you can't go in without a college degree most of the time. And I did it right out of high school. So I was very lucky at the time.
Wait, I remember in high school, a class of 86 rules. I remember out of high school, there was the job fair, and part of that job fair was the armed services. And you had the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, and the Coast Guard out there trying to recruit you. I ended up signing in for the Navy, and I was going to go in, and a couple of days before I was supposed to report, I got in a motorcycle wreck, so I guess the cards weren't in it. But my brother ended up in the Navy. He did it for 6 years. Never got on a boat. Huh? How about that? He was a corpsman in Orlando. And but that's a story that he told on this podcast before. But I live vicariously through him. The armed services, the Navy, and you went into the Army. That is like. You can have the best experience or the worst experience in the Army. Some people come out and they say, I was a grunt the whole time. I was a buck private the whole time. I got out and, I didn't learn anything. I didn't do anything. And then there's some that go all the way and become, go into management and become the general or become, colonel or whatever, get up high and make it a career. But where did you fall in that spectrum? How many years did you spend in the Army?
Total about 9.5, and I made it up to E5, which is what we call a buck sergeant stripes.
Okay, well, all the sergeantry I know is from Clint Eastwood movies, probably, and maybe there was that one. Was it Major Payne? The comedy that with Damon Wayans. But no, I remember Heartbreak Ridge. He was a gunny, but he had all these ribbons, and he was an enlisted man, but still got treated with the respect because he had been through all that combat and all that hardship. And I think that movie was just after the actual actor Clint Eastwood had some glass stuck in his throat, so his usual raspy voice was even more raspy than usual. Heartbreak Ridge, So I remember that movie was awesome. But that was Marines, man. I mean, tell me about your Army experience and did you like Stripes? Is it the greatest movie ever made? Is there any truth to it at all?
It's been a long time since I've seen that movie, but I auditioned for the Army band specifically, and so that's what I'm saying. It's kind of an accomplishment to be able to go straight from high school into the band program.
Yeah.
Because nowadays they expect you to have already a college degree in music before they'll even kind of look at your audition and stuff. And so basically we have to do all the Army stuff. We have to shoot guns. We have to put up tents. We have to dig foxholes, everything that everybody else does. And then on top of that, we still got to play music and do ceremonies and community outreach and all of that.
But that's a beautiful thing. You see, the entertainment department, in high school and in college, I was part of the entertainment department. I didn't get a lot of school done for the most part, but I did get enough to get through what I needed to do to get my I did firefighting and communications and paramedic, and I did a few classes, but I was partying a lot, man. I was playing a lot of music for people, and the people do need to be entertained, to get to wind down. Now, when you were doing this stuff on bass, and I understand also about having to get a college degree, because when I went in the Navy, I was wanting to do Navy Air, and to get to Navy Air, they wanted the cream of the crop, the people that had something up in the gray matter besides that one molecule that Homer Simpson has when he's craving donuts. They want a few more brain cells than the ones that I had. But what did you learn? And I guess you had to have some knowledge in 9.5 years of Army training and Army service. They had to have schooled you some. Did they teach you better how to be a musician, or better how to be a soldier, or just plain better how to be a person?
Pretty much all the above. I mean, like I said, you got to do the Army job, and then you also got to do the musician job all at the same time. So every day you're doing something like training or something for the military, whether it's weapons qualification or working on your NBC suit, nuclear, biological, chemical, like if there's ever gas attacks or anything like that. And then you also still got to do the musician side, which usually was the afternoon rehearsals after lunch. So every day you're practicing and getting better and learning the music. And then you also have marching practice to learn how to play your instrument while you're marching, the certain codes and things like that. So it's a lot different than college or high school.
Well, that's fantastic, man. Well, tell me about young Dan White. What was the first instrument that you picked up? Was it always the tuba? And have you always, I'm presuming that you're from Texas, that you're from somewhere around Temple, Texas, born, raised, still there, be there for till they put you in a box, I guess, or have you been around the country a little bit, traveled?
Well, when I first started band, I learned the trumpet first. But then I was having harder time because I've got big lips, and it's hard to put them in the little mouthpiece for the trumpet. So the band director at the time said, "Here, try the tuba," which of course is a bigger mouthpiece for bigger lips, and it fit right well with me. As far as traveling and stuff, I've been all over the world, touring and playing music. I got stationed in Germany for a while. I also got stationed in Korea. So I've played all over the world. I've played in Mexico. I've played here in Texas. And right now I'm currently living in Del Rio, not Temple anymore.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, how far away is that? I don't know geography. I've been through Texas. It is a wide state. I went east to west on 10. Oh, I'm on, it was on 10. And my goodness, if I didn't stop in the middle as I was doing parties, I did a party in Houston and one in, I think it's just the one in Houston. And then I went over to Arizona, but driving through, it took 2 days. If I needed to stop in the middle and take a break. But what part of Texas is, you said not Temple, but where now?
Del Rio is right on the border of Mexico.
Oh, all right. Do you ever step foot in Mexico these days?
Yeah, I still go every now and then to buy stuff.
Okay, all right. All right, right on the border of Mexico, down to the south. Ooh, all right. Well, a lot of politics.
Yeah, if you look at Texas, if you look at the shape of Texas and you see the little curve off to the side before you get to New Mexico, that's what we call the armpit of Texas. That's where Del Rio is.
Well, I'm looking at it right now on the video. If you're listening to the audio version of this, I encourage you to check out the video version on my YouTube, and you'll see the man's a proud Texan. He's got a map. Well, I guess a picture of Texas. What would you call that? A plaque of Texas?
No, it's a little tin.
A tin. That looks like an art project. That looks like something you might have made in class.
No, we bought it. It's just made out of some corrugated steel.
All right.
And then they just painted it and cut it in the shape of Texas.
Well, you mentioned that you had lips that were too big to be a trumpet player, but one of my favorite trumpet players to watch, and I encourage you to check it out on YouTube, is Dizzy Gillespie. Man, doing that, his face would explode when he was playing the trumpet, And I think in Cable Guy with Jim Carrey, they were kind of making fun of, or he was kind of paying homage to it while he was rattling this gentleman. He put his lips on the blower in a bathroom and had them blow up. And he goes, "You look like Dizzy Gillespie." And that is exactly true. I mean, do you think, what was it about your lips that did not work with that instrument?
It was just harder for me to get like real high notes on the trumpet.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm
bigger the lips, sometimes you can't get the muscles as tight as you need to get the higher register to come out of your instrument.
So when you're playing the trumpet, you have to have kind of a lemon tasting lips.
Like, yeah, you basically got to look like you just ate the sourest thing in the world, and your lips are all squeezed in.
Gotcha, man. Well, hey, look, this is primarily a learning podcast, and I'm learning from you, and thankfully, you're a teacher, so I can definitely learn from you. I mean, I could barely play 3 chords on a guitar, but you went from tuba to bass guitar, and I know I've talked to a lot of guitarists that because of need in a band, they will say, somebody will ask, "Hey, can you play bass? We need a bass player." And that's, part of the rhythm section. People may not know that the bass and the drum is what drives the song, drives the rhythm. Mm-hmm. The lead guitarist and the rhythm guitarist. Well, I guess the rhythm guitarist, it's in the name, that helps with the rhythm. But the lead guitarist is kind of telling a story along with the vocalist. But switching over from tuba to bass, you said it was kind of easy to do. What did you do with that band?
The hardest part, I already knew how to read the music because it was still in the bass clef like tuba. The hardest part was just being able to get the 2 hands to coordinate with each other on the strings.
All right. Well,
just like a piano, basically.
But a tuba is basically one hand that handles what do you call the parts of the tuba? The parts that you finger, I guess.
Those are called valves.
The valves. Is it
valves
one-handed?
Or levers, depending on what kind of tuba you have.
It's one-handed?
Yeah, it's 4 fingers on one hand.
Okay, like the trumpet has 3 valves, right? Right. And that's also one-handed. So you had to switch your brain completely to figure out that you had another hand that needed to work in conjunction. Now, what's your style of bass playing? Do you strum a bass or do you pluck a bass? I think in funk music you pluck, and then you were playing in a jazz band. What is it, strumming or plucking?
It's always plucking. I mean, I'm not one of those cheapos that plays with a pick. I don't pretend I'm a guitar player because I can't play guitar to save my life.
Well, how
so
about
it's all
that?
about getting your fingers moving on one hand and then being able to move the other fingers on all the frets.
See, to the layman, I'm looking at this instrument and it looks very similar to a guitar. And you just revealed something. You don't know how to play guitar?
No.
That is incredible. That just doesn't. It blows my mind because like I said, I've known a lot of guitarists that have switched over to bass because of need, because of necessity. Now, what band it's primarily the Army band that you've had your experience with. Have you ever been in a regular folks band, a lame person's band that you play for people outside of the Army in the Army band? I'm asking that kind of silly question because I know that I've been to a concert with the Royal Regiments on Parade, which is the British version of what you were doing, except it was like a drum and bugle and bagpipes, and it made me cry because, I love music, and when you're going to a show, you're going to cry, man. You're going to get the feels, and if you don't get the feels, you may check yourself for maybe not being human, because music is just, it can make you feel so much, man. I mean, how do you feel about when you're playing in front of people? And I mean, what kind of feedback do you get?
Well, basically, it's a symbiotic relationship. We play better when we can feel the energy coming off the crowd from how we're playing originally. It's kind of like a big circle. If we see the crowds getting into it, we basically kick it up a notch and get more of that higher level musicianship going on. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. it's just one of those things that kind of elevate your playing when you can feed off the audience and they're really getting into it.
Man, 9.5 years of playing in front of people, not just for the people in service in the armed services, but also for regular folks and entertaining crowds of many all over this planet. What were your favorite places to play? Where did the crowds respond the best to you, and what kind of music were you feeding to them?
When I was in Korea back in 95 and 96, they had a lot of jazz clubs over there. So it was kind of living like a little royalty over there in that time. Germany, of course, they do a lot of oompa bands for all their beer fests and things like that. But now that I'm living here on the border, I've got kind of like a little variety group going. We do Latin jazz, we do cumbias, merengues, all that kind of stuff. Plus, we throw rock, we throw country, and all kinds of stuff in. I don't like being just set in one style. I think the best way to get a bigger audience is to play something from all kinds of styles.
Oh, now you're playing my song, man. I'm from Miami. Soy más cubano de la Guantanamera. So I'm half Cuban, half Irish. And the blood is kind of thinning. So I'm third generation. I was born here. My mom was born in New York. I was born in Miami. My mom was born in New York, but my grandparents on my mom's side are straight from Cuba. I don't remember if exactly it's Havana, but probably not. It's probably just outside, somewhere on the beach, if I remember the stories right. But and I still hold that today. The different kinds of music and flavors that I found back in Miami. I play it on RadioWhat.com. So I'll play a country song, I'll play a rock song, and I'll play a bachata or a cumbia or some kind of banda music. You said in Germany they were doing a lot of oompa music. If you listen to the music from Mexico, it sounds exactly like the oompa music, man. You could probably blend that stuff together. Now tell me, in Mexico, you picked up somebody's tuba and played in an oompa band during Beer Fest. You had to have somewhere played in.
No, I haven't played a tuba over there. No, just bass.
Oh man, what an opportunity to play in an oompa band, a polka band, and roll out the barrel. And I think, what is it? My girlfriend, she's too fat for me, or one of my favorite polkas, I guess. Whenever I say favorite, and I don't even know the name of the song, but I know that if when I get occasion to play at a Polish wedding and all they want is polka music, I'm like, yes, please. And they get up out of their chairs and they start swinging stuff around. I mean, the same thing when I'm doing a Mexican wedding or a Latin wedding and I start playing a cumbia or a bachata. I mean, what kind of gigs are you playing with these bands? And it's jazz combined with Latin, so it's English and Spanish. It's bilingual.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a vocalist as well?
Right.
And you're the vocalist?
He sings the Spanish stuff. I sing American stuff. He sings Spanish stuff.
Oh, my goodness. That's got to be such a good show. Now, tell me, you got to tell me, where do I find that on the YouTube or the Spotify or what websites do you have? Because, like I said, all I could find was your Facebook. And when I looked up Dan White, who did I find? Who's the famous Dan White that you look up on Google whenever you Google yourself?
I don't know. There's quite a few out there.
Well, Daniel James White, the politician who assassinated George Moscone, the mayor of San Francisco, and Harvey Milk, who was played by Sean. Was it Sean Penn in that movie? And I'm like, why am I looking up Dan White like this? All right. I got to differentiate you. The name of the game these days is branding. And I know that you're with big records, and I know they're going to help you to brand yourself. If you had to change your name, if you had to add something to your name to make it stand out, what would you add to Dan White? I know you grew up with this great name, Dan White. It's a great American name. It looks good on a jersey. It looks good on a football jersey or any kind of jersey, really a band jersey. But
it was a football jersey, Danny White from the 70s Dallas Cowboys.
What? The America's team? I mean, I haven't kept up with him since since Aikman left. And actually, I did a party with Jimmy Johnson down in the Florida Keys at his house. He's got a big house, and his boat is almost as big as his house. Okay, he's probably passed away by now, but shoot, that was a great party. We had a karaoke show over at his house. But oh man, being from Texas, and I know that was when he moved over and started coaching the Dolphins, my team. But I really haven't kept up with them since Don Shula and Dan Greasy. So Bob Greasy. Yeah, I just said Dan Greasy, not. Oh man, this I'm slowly taking us off the rails. But tell me about tell me more about you. Tell me what you think about you.
Okay. Well, actually, you can find me under Dan Wesley White. That's my stage name, which is my real name too, because as you said, there's a lot of Dan Whites, there's some Wesley Whites, so I just used all three of my names. Well, that way I could sound more like a country singer or a psychotic serial killer, either one.
Oh my goodness. And there it is, Dan Wesley White. I see the logo, danwesleywhite.com. Now it's all unfolding for me. That sets you apart. And funny enough, my brother Ken, his middle name is Wesley. He always went by West for his whole life. But okay, now we've got an idea of where to find Dan Wesley White. That's the place you need to be looking up. Now, tell me about what you're getting into. What are you recording? I see Border Patrol, which makes sense since you're hanging right there on the border. You're on the front lines of what is happening today. I know I try to read a little bit of news and try to figure out what's happening in the world today. You don't know what to believe. I listen to Fox. I listen to CNN. I listen to NPR. I listen to my local political, Republican station, Democrat station. I don't know who's telling. I hear the same story told in 4 different ways from 4 different people, and sometimes 2 different ways from the same person. How is it going on the border of Mexico and Tejas?
Basically, there's a crap load of people coming over, and they're being released without any kind of stuff. We see them walking around all over town, things like that. Our crime rate has went up in our town because there's a lot more break-ins and vehicle thefts, things like that. So, yeah, it's getting pretty bad down here. There's a lot more people we're noticing, like in shopping center parking lots and stuff, that are kind of watching people and looking like they may want to grab people. So yeah, it's not good. But the only solace we have is they don't stay here long. They always want to go to the big cities.
Well,
we do have a few that stay around here.
I hear it straight from the horse's mouth, man. I've heard things. I've heard exactly what you're saying, is that the border is wide open, and it's it'd be nice if people just took care of each other and just stop hating on each other. But sometimes there's bad apples and bad actors in every walk of life, man. But we got to keep we start with ourselves. We keep ourselves safe, then our families, then our friends and neighbors, and make concentric circles around us as needed. But you're right there on the border, man, and that's been a contentious situation for the past, since I can remember. I remember wet foot, dry foot in the Florida Keys. So I've had my border situations as well. I was on the fire department down there in the Florida Keys, and I remember having to take care of Cuban refugees that came over on boats, and it became. Of course, it's political, depending on who's in office. But the wet foot, dry foot was the first thing that I remember. And that might have been in Carter's time and maybe into Reagan's time. I remember when they were taking all the Cuban. I was actually living because my dad had a pasture ship up in Arkansas when they were shipping all the Cuban refugees up to Fort Chaffee in Arkansas. And we lived around that area. Wow, I'm in Arkansas, and I don't even know where Fort Chaffee is.
Yeah, it's in Arkansas.
All right, here I am in central Arkansas. I got to figure out the geography of my own state. No, but I remember the Mariel boat lift, and like I said, I'm half Cuban, and my grandfather, he took a boat with a friend, like a 24-foot boat, and just motored it all the way to to Cuba, 90 miles, trying to get his mom, and he could not get his mom. But Fidel Castro was trying to put some criminals on the boat. Hey, why don't you take these guys with you? Not him personally, but his people were saying, hey, these guys need to go to Florida. Why don't you take him? Well, that's what Fidel was doing, was opening up the prisons and trying to get them put on these boats and send them up to Florida and then ultimately into the rest of the United States. So,
which is exactly what's going on, but on a much larger scale now for the last 3.5 years.
Yeah, and I know that there's sometimes they're not even Mexican. There's a new president of Mexico. It's a lady, and hey, we haven't seen what she can do yet. But a lot of times people are coming from further south in America through Mexico, and they're trying
a lot of Venezuelans, Ecuadorians, all that are coming through. I mean, we even got terrorists coming through. They've already stopped several people on the terror lists, but. It's amazing because every one they catch, 3 or 4 get away.
Man, I'm just happy for the ones that they do catch. My goodness. I know the Border Patrol has to be, like everything else, budgets get cut, and we need 5 guys here. Well, guess what? You get 1. We need a truck here.
Budget cuts either. It's just the way the higher ups are telling them, hey, you process them and then you let them go, and with what's called a order to appear. And the order to appear in front of a court judge isn't for 5 or 6 years down the road, and then by then they don't even go. So that's where they're losing track of all these people.
Wow,
there's no way to monitor where they are.
Well, and then you have said that you travel into Mexico. I mean, you have some friendly relations with them, going and doing some shopping. What kind of things do you buy down in Mexico?
Mostly go over there for food, like meat markets and grocery stores and stuff, because heck, I've spent about $60 at Walmart in Mexico, and it would have cost me probably double that here in the U.S. at Walmart. Yeah,
we're having a little trouble with our inflation here. Yeah. Oh my goodness. And now this is like the State of the Union with Dan Wesley White. In fact, I need to change that name. I'm going to change that to Dan Wesley White underneath you, because I think that differentiates you. That helps to find you a little bit better. I mean, as soon as I put it in Google, bam, Dan Wesley White. It's got your songs. You got your tracks right there. You got a little Spotify, and you're singer-songwriter from Del Rio. I mean, everything that we've said is right there. Now, what kind of gigs are you playing these days? Where can people see you play? Do you have any regular gigs, weekly or monthly?
Every month we usually play the restaurant here in Del Rio called Memos. It dates back to the early 1920s, so I think it just hit its 86th or 87th year. But that's where we have our little Latin kind of variety group that plays, where we do all the stuff, and people like it. And then we got another one coming up called Noches Musicales, where they do Friday night concerts in the little gazebo here in the park. And so we're playing on August 2nd there with that same group. And then, of course, I've got my solo thing going on the side, which is more kind of a rockish country western feel, which is what all my singles online kind of fall under.
Yeah, the 80s child. I mean, I'm a child of the 80s myself, born in 69, but I was, like I said, class of 86. The 80s is where I come from. And, here it is 2024, and I'm still listening to the 80s. And whenever I have a regular Friday night gig. I'm very fortunate to be at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas every Friday night, and I get to play the music. And this Friday night, I'm going to slip in a little Dan Wesley White. And then when people go, who is that? I'm going to say it's Dan Wesley White. And that's one of the things that a club DJ, a radio DJ, is symbiotic with a musician. You're supposed to be breaking out new songs. I mean, you're by no means a new artist. You're a seasoned artist. I can tell that no matter what band you're in, you're going to be enhancing whatever they're doing, especially jazz. And then with the Latin flavor, oh my goodness, having a Latin beat behind something, it gives me the feels, man. If you're making me homesick for Miami, because I remember going down South Beach and listening at all the different clubs, and I know almost every major town has their strip to where if you go to this club, it might be playing that type of music, country, and then this one is rock, and then this one is disco, and this one has a little, maybe that one is a Latin feel to it. But it's nice to get all those flavors of music and expose people to those flavors of music. It was a thing back with Lucy and Ricky and all those shows of the 50s. The woman was always trying to get the husband, hey, come out and rumba dance with me. So that was like a sitcom thing, or even a movie thing, was come out and learn how to salsa with me. I mean, do you find a lot of people that are learning how to dance, and do you recognize that, hey, there's a few wives that are dragging their husbands here to teach them a little salsa dancing, or do you have teachers that do that for you?
They used to have ballroom dancing classes here not too long ago, and they'd have salsa dancing classes as well. When we play in front of a restaurant or in a restaurant itself, so it's harder, but there are people that no matter what, they'll just get up and start dancing if they like the beat and the song. So that's kind of cool when they involve themselves in our performance.
Yeah, and it makes you feel good. I'm sure it enhances your playing. If you're playing for somebody that's dancing, that you can tell they're loving their partner. They're just holding them and listening to the music that you're playing. That's got to put a tear in your eye and fill your heart. Whenever I play a song and a couple gets on the dance floor, because I preface it before I play a love song. I'm going to say, grab your honey and dance. And, I don't know who your honey is, but grab your honey and dance. And they do. Man, it makes you feel good that you're playing the right music. You're making them feel good. They worked hard all week probably, and they're spending their time, their very valuable, precious time listening to Dan Wesley White. That's fantastic, man.
Yeah, we're kind of like a DJ in that way. We got to feel the crowd out. We see what they respond to, and then we keep kind of throwing that style at them or whatever. And then once they're into it, then we can kind of switch it up a little bit and go somewhere else.
Yeah. Now, when they're coming to one of your shows, what's the name of the bands that you play in?
Right now, the group I'm in is called After Five. We had a guy, his dad was actually the manager of, and I'm trying to think about it. I just had a brain fart, but it was an old time country guy, world known. I just had a brain fart.
Oh, that's all right. But you'll remember 3 minutes after the podcast is over.
His family owns the restaurant, and that's where we were playing. And his name was Cinco. He was born on Cinco de Mayo, and he was actually the 5th child. So everybody called him Cinco. And so he passed away a few years ago. And so because we all met through him, he got us all together and started playing. So that's why we're called now After Five.
Oh, that's nice homage. And through that, you keep them alive forever, man. That's how we remember the people that have gone before is you pay homage. You put a placard up on their, put a headstone up or put a picture up on the wall. You talk about them. And they live on forever and ever. And through your music, you're immortal, man. People are going to be listening to Dan Wesley White, or it's going to be available for people to listen to forever and ever, man, for as long as society keeps going. How does that make you feel? You write a song, a song idea comes into your head, and then you put it on paper or you put it on a note. I don't even know how kids are writing music these days. Okay, here's a standard interview question. What is the process of your songwriting, Dan Wesley White?
Basically, I kind of start with a theme in my head of what I want to sing about, and then it's kind of just thinking of rhyme schemes and trying to find the hook or the chorus as fast as I can, and then I build the rest of the song up around it. And then once I kind of get an idea of the chorus, then I'll start playing with the chords and the chord progressions and getting music set with it. So I kind of do both. I write lyrics and I write music at the same time, based around a certain theme.
Okay. Well, most of the people that I've talked to either play piano or play guitar or play some kind of a rhythmic instrument that they can write their music on, or maybe like a MIDI keyboard. How do you write your melodies? Is it all in your head? Are you humming into a recorder and then telling your bandmates to play? How does the music get recorded?
I actually figure it out on bass first. I write it as a bass part first, and then I build it from there up onto the chords. And then I just write out the chord changes and the chord structure, and then they just kind of add their own flavor to it to flesh it out.
That is the first time I've ever heard of a song being written bass first. That is fantastic. I remember when I was in Coconut Grove in Miami, or in the Miami area, there's a place, or at least there was a place more than 30 years ago. I'm thinking about. It was called Tobacco Road, and they had an open mic night, and I happened to be there on that open mic night. And I encourage people, if you have a night off, support your local musicians. Go to an open mic night. Go to one of the shows. If you're anywhere near Dan Wesley White, go see their shows. But this show, the open mic night that I went to, for 45 minutes, there was a guy playing bass and another guy playing a bucket. And they had me mesmerized for 45 minutes. A 5-gallon bucket and a bass guitar. And it was just, I was hypnotized for 45 minutes. I mean, when you played, it was really great. It's a story that I've told before on this podcast, and man, it must have resonated with me, because I still think about these two guys playing, a bass and a bucket and doing it all. But now you have bandmates. Are you writing songs and taking it to your bandmates, the After Five guys, and having them help you flesh out the song? Or how are you recording your music with what musicians?
With my first single, The Politically Incorrect, I did that. I had some of the local guys do it. But then after that, I found this studio in Nashville called Beard Music Group. And what they do is you send them the chord changes, you send them the vocals and everything, and then they flesh everything out, which it really sounds amazing that they take your idea and then they take it to the next level, because they're all professional musicians.
Now
and then they mix my vocals in on top of it.
That I've heard about. I just watched the documentary for Stax Records, and I actually took the tour for Stax Records about 10 years ago when I was over in the Memphis area. And I remember they had their hired guns, the green onions, oh my gosh. See, now I'm forgetting what the name of the band for Stax Records is. But they had their in-house band, and I know that there's hired guns at almost every one of these studios. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna look up Stax house band, Booker T and the MGs. I mean, they were the ones that played behind almost every song that came out of Stax Records. And I know famously the Monkees, when they were going to record, they didn't know how to play instruments too well when they first started the TV show, but they learned how to play real quick, and they went into the studio to go record an album. And the studio engineers and the executives said, "Oh, all we need is Davy Jones. The other three, you can go. We have our own musicians in the house." It's amazing that you have seasoned musicians. That is one job that you can do, is play on records and just be a studio musician and just pump out hit after hit after hit. That is amazing. And that's something that you could do, but you took it another way. You decided, I'm going to teach the next generation. When did teaching come into the equation? Have you always wanted to be a teacher? Were your mom and dad a teacher at all?
No, actually, when I was in the military, I kind of got burned out on music since I was doing it every day. and I actually went in for an English literature kind of degree. But then once I got out of the military, I was like, music is me, that I can't live without it. So then I went back to school and got my teaching degree, and then I got a master's degree in music as well.
Oh, man. See, you went all the way. Yeah, you're a smart guy. You use both halves of your brain. I don't even think that's actually a thing. It used to be the thinking that you use one half for your creative and one half for your analytical. I think it's both halves.
Not in music.
And
there's data now that music is the only thing that works both halves at the exact same time.
Yeah, and there's data also that if people have to have their brains split in half, the both brains can take over either function. You know, there's people that live with half a brain, and they're not all in Congress. Okay, all right, that was a little shot. All right. Well, I mean, give people an idea of what's going on in Dan Wesley White's world right now. I mean, you say that you're playing a lot. Are you going to be recording more music? Tell me about the music that you've recorded before. You said you did that Politically Incorrect.
Yeah, Politically Incorrect was my first song I did 2 years ago. What I like to call my bitching song. Basically, my way of complaining about everything that's going on politically in the U.S. and the way I see things, especially living where I'm at. My next song was The Border Patrol, which was kind of a homage to the Border Patrol agents, because they're kind of in a rock and a hard place. They have to do what they're told, but they don't agree with what they're having to do. And so, just let them know we've got their back. So that's my way. I took it from a storytelling standpoint, like, what would a life in the day of an agent be like? So it's kind of like a little story about how their shift is and things like that.
Wow. Then
I decided to make one called My Other Family, which is actually about being in the band world, joining marching band and stuff like that. And then I had a few others released. Veterans Day last year, I released my military one, which is called 22. 22 is the national average of veterans that kill themselves every day. So I wanted to bring that one out to bring awareness for veterans, let people know this is a serious problem. We got to stop it. 22 a day is too many. And also, if any veterans, may be in dark places, they can hear it and maybe, get a little bit of hope where they don't go through with something that they're maybe thinking of.
Well, I know that
and there's song.
There's a 22. Yeah, there's a 22 organization that's centered around that as well. I mean, you know, in your 9.5 years in the Army, did you experience any problems, any detriments like that? I mean, everybody has ups and downs in their jobs, but from what I understand, that sometimes that job can really have some downs. Did you feel?
Right. Well, I mean, even nowadays, I still sometimes feel it. And if it weren't for music, I probably still wouldn't be here.
You know,
that's always been my creative outlet and the way I escape stuff.
I've heard, people that study dreams, the ones that dream the most vivid and the most real are people with PTSD, because they relive those, horrible situations that they were put in, no matter what the situation might be. You could have PTSD for several different things, not just being in military service and seeing the horrors in combat and that kind of thing. But people relive their horrors in dream, so their brains can't assemble those memories in a different way and kind of compartmentalize and send them to the back of their heads, because they're always dreaming and thinking about what had happened. But I couldn't see it, man. I don't want my mind to go, and I feel it going. I mean, I'm in my 50s now, so I'm starting to feel like I forget more things than I remember sometimes. But I'm hoping that talking to people like you and learning stories and keeping my mind active is going to help to mitigate those problems. And then you, being a creative, you find situations and you write a song about it. You have that ability, that superpower, and that amazes me to no end. I've never written a song, let alone dozens of songs, and put them out to the world. It's incredible to me.
Yeah, I'd basically just gotten to a point in my life. I've always played other people's music. So now it was time for me to leave something of myself behind. So when I'm not here anymore, my kids can still have something to remember me by, or, other people maybe can hear my message even after I'm gone.
So
So it's just basically a legacy thing.
yeah,
That's why I started recording.
we all want to live forever in some way or another. We know we have a finite amount of time on this planet in this particular iterance of skin suit, if you will. But we all want to leave our mark and show that we were here and hopefully leave the world a better place than when we came in. And I think you're doing that, man. You're telling stories about real people, about the Border Patrol people. Have you talked to some of those Border Patrol agents and gotten their ideas, or was that part of the inspiration, or was it, seeing them on the news?
It was talking to some of them, getting some of their stories, as well as things I've witnessed with my own eyes here in town with the influx of stuff going on.
Wow, man, that just that impresses me to no end. Bartender, pour me something strong. Feels like a party song. What was that about?
Oh, yeah. That's just kind of a, what do you call it? Going to the bar and just drinking to get rid of your problems, whether they be marital problems or work problems.
I see it. I mean, I had a half a beer one time. I don't drink alcohol at all. But, when I was 21, I got convinced to play in a quarters game. And I got drunk after a half a cup of beer. By the time it got back to my turn in the quarters game, I was passed out. And so I never drank again. But I do get to play in bars, and I see people and come in and, the ones I see when hey, here I am, yeah. And by the end of the night, oh, here I am, yeah. I mean, you could have that experience, or you could just have a great time the whole night long. Handle yourself. I know that alcoholism is a real thing as well, and there's hotlines for that. I know I've had it in my family. Maybe that's why I don't drink. I'm worried about the gene. I'm worried about that. But you have experience of seeing people in bars, and you have the ability to make them feel good and forget their troubles as well as they're having a little sip of whatever they want to drink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's, like I said, that's the power of music. You can make people feel any way you're feeling by performing.
Well, I mean, okay. So how often do you play with After Five? Is that the once a month thing, and then maybe some festivals here and there? And then how often do you play solo? And are there any other bands that you're involved in? You seem like a busy musician, a working musician.
Well, a lot of it also has to do with my teaching schedule as well, because that's a full-time job. And of course, during the fall marching season, football season takes over all your Friday nights and weekends because of contests and things like that. So I don't tour as much as I'd like to. But yeah, the After Five we do once or twice a month sometimes at the Memos restaurant. Haven't really went out with my single stuff yet. I've lip synced it. I've had the backing track played and I've sung over it, but I haven't played it with a live group yet. But I'm hoping with big records now we can start getting into some festivals and things like that. Or one of the ideas I have is maybe even start performing at some of the VFWs and the Legionnaire halls, doing like a veteran show.
Yeah, I love going to the VFW. I get to be at the Choctaw VFW in Choctaw, Arkansas, about once or twice a month. And man, it's the core group is veterans. And then, of course, they let, people from the outside, some younger folks. Boy, these old guys, these old veterans love it when I play some young music and the young folks come in, because I think it rejuvenates. Once you get to be a grumpy old veteran, like your hat says, you get infused with youth. And you said you have some kids and you teach some kids. It's got to keep you young and in tune, in touch with what's going on, what's hip, what's now. And just because I said what's hip, what's now says I'm an old guy too. So, yeah, Yeah, I don't think they say hip and now anymore. But I mean, what do your kids think about your musical career? Not just your own biological kids, but also the kids that you teach. Do they know about it?
Some of them do. I don't really advertise it too much because I try to keep work and private life separate, which a lot of teachers nowadays don't do, and that's why a lot of them are getting in trouble and under the microscope more. But yeah, some of them like it. Some of them are surprised. It's like, wow, you can sing, or wow, you have recordings online. They don't. When I say, yeah, I've got a Spotify and everything, they're like, no, you don't. And then, of course, when I show them, they're like, they can't believe it, kind of thing.
Sure enough.
So it's kind of cool to open their eyes up and see different, where, they don't have to perform just band instruments their whole life. They can branch out and do electronic music, or they can do kind of like what I'm doing, singer-songwriter.
Yeah, you're teaching high school kids, right?
Middle school and high school.
Middle school and high school. No wonder, man. You're busy as can be. And now, is that 8 hours a day? You're doing 8 different classes? Is it 4 middle school and 4 high school? What's your day look like?
It's a 6-hour day, or a 6-period day. Each class is about 50 to 55 minutes. And of course, you get a 30-minute lunch, and then you also get a conference period. But then we have the high school band practice after school, which is about another 3.5 hours. So you're looking at 12 to 13-hour days for the first 3 months of school.
Where do you find time for your solo projects? Where do you find time for anything else? Do you have any hobbies? There's another interview question. Or is your hobby...
Well, music is my main hobby, but of course I like going online and playing Call of Duty and blowing little kids up too. So
see, I'm playing way too much.
I'm a bad teacher.
I'm playing way too much Fortnite, okay? Which is like Call of Duty, except you get to wear a funny suit and dance around a lot. So I need to switch over. I played maybe 3 rounds of Call of Duty with a partner, with a dude that I know, and the only thing I could do was be the point man and eat bullets, I guess, while he won the game. Hey, we won. No, you won. I took a bunch of bullets right here to my little chest plate that you told me to put in. I had no idea which weapon to pick up. Now in Fortnite, I can win some of those. I can win in Fortnite. And it's the same controller. I have my my Xbox controller sitting right here in front of me all the time. So, yeah, I think I need to switch over to Call of Duty. Is it the Warfare one?
I couldn't do Fortnite too good. My kids would always beat me at it, but I couldn't do it. The whole building while you're trying to shoot stuff, it was just too much going on. At least in Call of Duty, it's point and shoot pretty much the whole game.
All right. Got to have a little time to unwind. I'm doing a lot of these podcasts and newscasts, trying to keep myself aware of what's going on in the world. I can't stay in my little bubble. Although I say can't, you can. You can shut yourself out from the entire world and go be Ted Kaczynski on top of a mountain. And don't do that. Don't do that. Don't be Ted Kaczynski on top of a mountain in a little cabin. Don't do it. No, but I mean, it sounds like you keep yourself in tune with what's going on in the world, and you teach those kids, not just music, but through your songwriting, you teach them a little bit more. Not just the kids, but anybody that takes the time to listen to a Dan Wesley White song just might learn something. About what's going on in the world, in Texas specifically, and then globally. You think locally and act locally and think globally, I guess, is the thing I always heard when I was growing up. But it sounds like you're doing it, man. But are you teaching? You're in charge of the marching band, and do they do concerts too?
Well, I'm not in charge of it. I'm just one of the directors that helps the high school out, because I'm more of a middle school director, but we also have to help the high school out during marching season, since there's so many of them, and they do a lot of contests and concerts, that kind of stuff.
Man, you are teaching the next generation, and that's fantastic, man. Giving them that love. I mean, you're having to pull double duty. I can hear it, probably because of a budget cut somewhere.
Well, this past 2 or 3 years, they've been trying to balance their budget, and the way they do it is by getting rid of fine arts, which is the worst thing to ever do, because that's where the kids learn their critical thinking and all the higher level stuff that they supposedly want all the kids to learn, which is higher level creativity and things, but yet they're cutting all the programs for it.
Yeah, being part of a team. I mean, it takes a lot to be in a marching band and, make sure that everybody's in line and it teaches you how to work well with others, man. And that helps you in almost any career, any situation is not to be a hermit and be able to, to have a conversation, to strike up a conversation like we've had, Dan Wesley White. I had no idea who you were before we started this podcast. And now that I've spent almost an hour with you, I got a little idea of where Dan Wesley White, comes from, gets his ideas, gets his inspiration from. I mean, you have some kids of your own. Are they playing music? What are they getting into?
Well, I've got 3 boys. One's in the Air Force right now. One's in high school, and one's in middle school. So they're kind of spread out. But yeah, they've all been in band. I've always made them in band. My oldest is in the Air Force. He's also starting to try to do like a heavy metal type band up in Virginia area. So that's where he's stationed right now. And the other 2 are still living here at home with me. So we'll see where they go.
My brother got out of the Navy, and he said, if I ever re-up, I'm going to the Air Force. They treat you better.
Yep.
What kind of job?
If I can do it again, I'd go Air Force instead of Army.
What kind of job's he doing up there?
He's what they call a dirt boy. He's a kind of an engineer. He's the one that makes the runways and repairs runways and roads and stuff.
That's a man that works with his hands, man. That's something that's going to become handy throughout his life.
Oh, yeah.
I used to build stuff when I was a kid. I don't build anything anymore. I need to really, well, first of all, I need to get a workshop and start to get my tools back together and then start building things. That's an important, vocation is to, I've just read a story about a cobbler in Lakeland, Florida. I didn't even know there was cobblers still around. The people wear their shoes out and then throw them away, and they become part of the landfill. But no, this guy, he'll cobble your shoes back together. So that's these are skills that need to be kept alive in children. And
yeah, I mean, one of the biggest lies in the education system right now is you have to have a degree to be successful in life, and that's totally BS. If you can get a job where you can work with your hands and do manual labor, you're going to make a heck of a lot more money than these people wasting money on these degrees that go nowhere. I mean, I don't see how people can spend thousands and thousands of dollars on these degrees that have no purpose. Gender studies and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's no field for it to give you a job, so why waste your money on something you're not going to be employed in? Which is why I fell back on teaching, because I figured if I can't be a professional performer, at least I can pass on my knowledge and teach band knowledge, which is why I went and got my teaching degree, and this is now my 19th year doing it. So.
Hey, fantastic. Yeah, you can pretty much learn anything on YouTube and Google it. If I don't know it, I'll know it in 30 seconds, or I'll know something about it. I'll know just enough to be dangerous to myself and others around me. But yeah, it's good. It's good that you're a teacher, man. I admire teachers. I admire people that did armed services. I mean, so you've done it. You've done them both, man. You're a double shot guy. I admire people that could play music, triple threat, man. You're doing it all, man. You're using your life the way you want it, and you're shaping it the way you want it to be. You said you can't. Those who can't do teach. Well, you can do, and you can teach. So you're doing it all, man. You're doing both. You got your full-time day job that affords you the ability to give you the sanity of doing your night job. Because I'm sure playing in front of the people, it's got to jazz you up. To put a pun on it, because I know you play some jazz too.
Yeah, I've always been a performer at heart. I love being in front of a crowd and having people just react to what I'm doing on stage.
Super fantastic. All right. Well, the place they need to go is danwesleywhite.com. That's the first and foremost. I see with big records, man, you're going to be doing that. The TV stuff. I think Mark wants to put some festivals together. I mean, there's nothing like a festival for a consumer. Go into a festival and say I was there to go see Wesley White, but then I went and I got to see 5 other bands that I would have never heard of until I went to that festival. That makes me feel good, and I'm sure that you helping others and others helping you to get even more ears exposed to what you're doing, that's got to make you feel good. What do you think?
Yeah, we gotta get more indie artists out there, because mainstream, pretty much anything, it's all pop now, even the country. And we got to go back to our roots and bring up these young artists that are coming up indie. And of course, I'm now considered an indie too, because I'm going against the grain of what's coming out of Nashville nowadays. So indies need a lot of promotion, especially with the streaming, like Spotify screwing people over and hardly paying them anything, but yet it's the biggest stream thing out there that you can get your stuff noticed on. So it's kind of a catch-22. You can have your stuff on there, but you ain't going to hardly make anything. I mean, it's like point something, 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 something one is what you get for every stream on Spotify.
Yeah, the value is, and I got put in my place because I was talking about the little bit of money that does come from millions of plays on Spotify, but I got put in my place by an artist who said the exposure that Spotify gives you has some value as well. I listened to a podcast today with Ed Sheeran, and he said when he first started, he was, Spotify was just starting out, and he was thinking about putting his stuff on there. Well, he goes over to Sweden or somewhere in the Netherlands, and they thought he was the biggest thing ever. And he had only put out one record, but because of being put on Spotify and because of the amount that they were listening to the Spotify streams, he was able to put on some great shows over there. And I've heard from other artists on this podcast that have said the exposure, it helps to get those live shows, to get you booked on those live shows. Just like this, I guess social media, same thing. Some bookers, some agents won't look at you unless you have, 50,000 fans on your Instagram and hundreds of thousands of views on your Spotify. It's the way of the world right now. If you don't keep moving with it, I mean, do you teach any of that, the business part of the business, or is it all musical theory, chord progression, that kind of thing? You don't teach any of the business. It's more
concert band and jazz band settings. But we do need to start teaching them real world applications of music, like, because again, kids don't always want to play trumpet or clarinet or something, but they may really like music. So you need to teach them kind of a business model as well.
Yeah. I mean, not that it's a big deal too much anymore. Kids can't write cursive so much. They can't write a check, balance their checkbook. Not that they have to write checks too much. Everything's electronic now, but hey, the world keeps moving and we keep moving with it. All your stuff's on Spotify. So you may or may not ever get a CD or a pressed vinyl album of Wesley White, but you'll certainly be able to hear. And I think the problem that the record companies had is they were putting out crap. They were putting out, a record. And I know whenever I was buying records, which was a lot, I would get a record with 1, maybe 2 songs that I liked, and the other 12 songs, junk. So now that you have the ability to buy that 1 or 2 songs that you like and throw the rest away, that's where Spotify gets you. That's where Apple iTunes gets you. That's why people don't sell records anymore. They don't sell full albums. They sell, hey, that Wesley song that I liked, that song about the Border Patrol, that song about 22. Yeah, I like those. That's awesome. Let me pay a couple bucks to get that song.
Mm-hmm. Of course, they're not even really buying them anymore. It's all about paying the monthly stream fee to Spotify and Apple, and then you can listen to it as long as you're making the payment.
Yeah, hopefully you get a tiny piece of that. Your residual check comes in 50 cents. Yes.
I wish it was that much, but it's not.
Oh my. All right, man, let's wind this thing down. Give the people some shout outs that have helped you along the way. You already talked about this. We talked about big records a little bit. Tara put us together. So excited about Tara. I had her on the podcast. She's a nice lady. And Mark over there at Big Records. But the place that you recorded your records, or that you send your tracks to, that's kind of interesting to me. I think somebody's going to follow, my loyal listener is going to follow in your footsteps and find that place and send their demos and have them fleshed out. Tell me about that. Give me some shout outs to people that have helped out along the way.
Well, the Nashville place is called Beard Music Group, and they've got a bunch of world-class musicians in there who still work on big artist recordings and things. Of course, Memo's Restaurant for having us play down here in Del Rio with the After Five group, to our buddy that passed away, Cinco Calderon. Just all the people at Big Records helping me navigate this new chapter of my life, because I knew I wanted to record stuff, but I didn't kind of know how to put everything out there, and they've been helping me along the way.
Yeah, I know that they're working with the Sony Orchard. I hope that that pans out for a lot of you musicians. I hope that it gets you to that next level. And whoever, my last release last month on the 24th was my first one with the Sony Orchard, so I'm waiting to see how that plays out. Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, we can only do so much on our own. We need a little bit of a team, some people to help. Sometimes we tap our family first, and sometimes our family doesn't want to be tapped. So we got to hire a pro, hire some professionals. All right. Well, Dan Wesley White, I don't want this to be the last time that we chit-chat. As time progresses, as things happen, I want you to have an open invitation to the What Makes You Famous podcast and come chit-chat with me, and maybe we can push whatever you're doing further. I want them to go see you at Memo. When's the next time you're going to be playing for people?
Well, we were supposed to play tomorrow, but I have a doctor's appointment, so we can't play tomorrow. So it's just we usually go about once a month. It's usually Thursday nights.
Pretty cool. So and you can find that.
Get together.
Is that on your website, or is it easier to find out about your gigs on your personal Facebook, or where do you put your gigs out?
I put them more on the Facebook, my artist page, Dan Wesley White.
Okay. I'll have the links in the show notes below so people can look those up and find out more. All right. I always finish these things off with last words for the people. This could be words to live by, something you heard a long time ago, maybe, a mantra you wake up with every morning, or whatever pops into your head at this moment in time. Dan Wesley White, give the last words for the people.
Music is the heart of all matter. Music is made up of vibration, so anything that makes vibration gives off sound. So even atoms rotating causes sound. Planets rotating in outer space cause sound and music. So that's my little phrase I've had for a few years.
Well, there you have it, party people. Dan Wesley White. What a cool dude. And the guy's been around the block a little bit in the Army. And, not just doing the Army job, but also doing the music job in the Army for 9.5 years. Oh my gosh. That's like 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs, whatever job the higher ups want you to do. That's what you're doing. I commend you, Dan Wesley White. And then you went off and became a school teacher. That's another hard job. School teacher. Teaching the children. The children are our future. You're doing the right things, man. You're walking the walk. You're talking the talk. And in your very little spare time, you take it out and you make some songs for us. Some new songs. Some songs that just come out of your brain and get put out to the world. It's amazing. Amazing superpower that you have. Teaching the children and then, teaching us through song, because a lot of your songs have messages in them. They have a little storytelling element to them. So if my loyal listener doesn't watch out, she just might learn something. That's right, from listening to a Dan Wesley White song. Thank you so much for being on the What Makes You Famous podcast. That's it for this edition of What Makes You Famous. Now, if you, yes, you, my loyal listener, if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to give me a call, 501-470-6386, or email keysdan@aol.com. That's it for me. It's keysdan, radiowhat.com, djlittlerock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.